Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story plus a bunch of big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Now, before we begin, because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, they implemented new policy where they reached a settlement with the United States government and implemented new policy meant to dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. Meaning, I have to ensure everybody understands that this video is not meant for children. It is not marketed towards kids, it is not advertised towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show that kids can watch, but this video, as with all the videos on my channel, will be looking at it from an adult perspective, and therefore could be discussing adult themes and content, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, before we begin, we're looking at the final installment of The Key to Time, the Chaos Pool, starting with part 1, and today, as I forgot to mention, is the 7th of February, 2021. And here's the interesting stuff about the Chaos Pool. It's written by Peter Angelides, or Angelides. I think it's Angelides. He actually in his Twitter includes a pronunciation, but I don't know how to read those pronunciations. But I'm fairly certain it's Angelides. And he's actually a Doctor Who novelist. He got a start in the 8th Doctor Adventures with the book Cursal and wrote several others, some of which I've read, some of which I haven't. And what's interesting is that this is one of, I think, only 2 big Finish stories that we're actually going to be covering here on the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, because he didn't actually write a lot. He, now, that doesn't say, he must be because he didn't write a lot. In fact, I will say the Chaos Pool itself is starts off really, really well. Part 1 is definitely thrilling, and it builds up to a very fun cliffhanger, where a really good misdirection throughout the entire story is pulled, and you really get and you get to see that misdirect just work as a misdirect. Especially because this is a story where the Doctor and Amy are looking for we're looking for the 6th segment of the Key to Time. They find themselves on a ship that is about to be about to be shot down by a ship apparently from Gallifrey, led by President Romana, played by Lalla Ward. And here's where the trick comes in. The big cliffhanger is a lot of this first episode is trying to build up to, okay, who's on this ship? Who's why can't they seem to understand us? Why? Because there are, aliens on the ship that the Doctor and Amy arrive on. They're sort of like, I think they're kind of almost like gastropods in nature. But that isn't actually confirmed, but they do leave mucus, so it makes me think that they are that they are gastropods, and that is part of what this story is doing. And it builds up to this big revelation that, in fact, it's not Romana, it's Princess Astra of Atrios, which actually makes a lot of sense. Why couldn't they understand these people? Why none of these people were in a TARDIS? and even this, it recontextualizes the scenes from Lala Ward's perspectives, which is very, very different. Um, it's Lala Ward gets to play her part as Princess Atrios very differently from what you usually expect. Um, but it's which is actually a lot of fun. Um, like she has this um, she has this captain with her, Captain Pargrave, um, and they're sort of on an exploratory mission, um, and and the sound design and music from Jamie Robertson and Simon Robinson, they're two different people, um, actually makes you think, oh, okay, this is different, and it makes the twist work just all the better. Meanwhile, you have Amy also being taken over, so in at the point when she leaves the Doctor by a mysterious figure. It's implied to be Zara because Zara is in this, but Zara is also with uh, with Princess Astra. So I don't think it actually is Zara, and they're both trying to find. They are both trying to find the final segment of the key to time, um, which is great. It's something that I think really, really works well. Um, you get to see a lot there with the character having her need to sort of be different, and it's a lot of fun with that. There's a lot of fun that Laura Doddington can have with that, but also there's just you just get this different sort of such a different story where you don't quite you want to know what she's doing, and you see sort of Zara kind of wanting to evolve like Amy did, and there's this psychic link that develops between the two of them because they are they are um, you know sisters, and that sort of aspect of the story is played up again really, really well, that you really feel for Zara, that needs she needs something. She needs to be figure out a way to be yeah, to be there, and you feel really bad for her, because she is just there, and Amy kind of gets overshadows her. But the Chaos Pool is off to a really, really almost a perfect start. So I'm gonna have to give part 1 a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 8th of February 2021. I just finished listening to part 2 of the Chaos Pool. This second episode is genuinely great. It is kind of a step down from the first one, mainly because after the first episode's mystery, this is one where they don't really they don't really go to a lot of interesting places with it. Instead, it's a bit more of a here's reintroducing Princess Astra and really introducing sort of what this episode's the story's conflict is, and introducing the idea of the Chaos Pool, because the Chaos Pool wasn't necessarily a thing that was immediately meant to be you know, it's a very it's this very different sort of story, where the Doctor, uh, and uh, and Zara in the form of Amy, um, and I guess, um, and I guess, um, it's one of those very different, um, sort of stories, because you have, um, you have a very different, this very different sort of story, um, because we're playing around with the grace and this voice telling Amy and Zara to do things. Um, like, this is a, um, there is just this very different sort of story where everything kind of goes, um, it kind of goes into this plot, um, it's a very, very different story. Um, this episode, though, does seem, it does have the big problem of not actually moving things along. Like, there's some really, really interesting ideas, that I think are great and make this episode and really sell the episode. Like the whole idea of Atrios, being forced, essentially, um, they're essentially forced to have this, um, have age, and, Princess Astra is, one of the few people who seems to be living longer, and no one no one quite knows why she's being allowed to live longer. And she, has, you'd think she would, she would, there would, you would sort of get an idea of why and how she's been able to avoid aging. Um, I think it's the idea of her being part of the key to time. There's also, this is an episode where the idea is that Amy and Zara become too human, so they can't convert her back, because she's built up as basically, um, basically everything, uh, everything that the story wants to do. This is just this different, um, it's a very, very different sort of story, because because it works around weird things. Um, it is kind of a weird sort of thing. Like I really like I really like what it does, and it plays off itself so well. Um, like it works so well, but it's taking that point, like you have creatures from the beginning and the end of the universe meeting each other and causing it. We go back to the planet that Judgment of Iskar started on. So that's also just and that's also just another little bit of interest for the story to play around with, because it is really good, um, uh, in this very different sort of thing. So overall, I'm gonna have to give part 2 of the Chaos Pool an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 9th of February 2021. I just finished listening to part 3 of the Chaos Pool, which brings the quality right back up to perfect, honestly. Yeah, this is a story that is kind of all about its rather confusing characters. And it actually fits the Fifth Doctor really well, as does Peter Anghelides' writing style. Now, I will have to talk about Doctor Who books when I explain this, because that's how I know more about Anghelides and the way he writes. He got his start on the Eighth Doctor adventures, with a book called Cursal, and he also wrote one called Frontier Worlds, and I think he co-wrote The Ancestor Cell with Stephen Cole. I think. I don't genuinely remember. But his style of writing is very plain, and that is kind of to its detriment in the books that he's written, mainly because, well, it means it's hard to grab you. But when writing for audio, this plain style kind of helps the performers, at least here in the Chaos Pool. It helps Laura Doddington and Peter Davison really make this connection as characters. Now, because the Fifth Doctor is one of the more kind Doctors, and by that I mean more human, able to completely go in touch with his companion's emotions. Really, he's one of the first that does it a lot. You would get glimpses of it with Troughton, and glimpses of it with Pertwee and Baker, but Davison's the one who would do it all the time and make that a core part of his characterization of the role. And that's kind of important when you get to a story like this, where Zara can't find the segments because she's becoming too human, and that scares her. Remember, Zara is because Zara's a tracer and only a little older than Amy by like a couple of minutes. Remember, they're both only a couple of weeks old each. They're both trying to understand what being alive means, and what can they do. Laura Doddington plays the role really, really well, as she sort of comes to terms with the fact that she actually has a will of her own. She is finding these things, but she doesn't have to find them. Amy, who spent most of episode 2 trapped in a satchel, which was kind of annoying, if I'm going to be honest, the Fifth Doctor and Amy's relationship is one of the cherries on the cake of these of this entire trilogy. Is just that this gives Doddington a real chance to shine as this character who absolutely breaks down and cries on the doctor's shoulder, and it's really well performed, and really well written. It's a scene where the character's allowed to sort of explore what she thinks she actually can accomplish as a person. Can she be human? Can she be the one be one to figure out what's going on, or what can she really accomplish? Can she accomplish her goals, or is she forever stuck as just this tracer? It asks all these questions. Now, part 3 of the Chaos Pool, also we get to the actual Chaos Pool here and have an introduction to what this voice is. There's this voice who wants the segments, and it just wants them because it wants them. It doesn't ever actually give a real explanation as to why it wants them. And it contradicts itself. It doesn't take stock in its name, but it doesn't give it anyway. And you have this character built up around the idea of a name, and naming things being just this important sort of through line to everything that the story wants to be. Like you have to learn who Amy and Zara are, and Amy's reunion with the Doctor here is also really solid. It brings Sierra Johnson back to the forefront and introduces her back into the story when she had been taken out of it for a decent amount of time. There was a lot of this story where she wasn't a character here. She was down, down in sort of the back of the listener's mind. Meanwhile, you have this all building up to the fact that a return of both the White and Black Guardians to the trilogy, which of course makes sense. And of course, I'll explain how the Black Guardian escapes his weakened state, and the White Guardian gets perhaps his moment to shine as sort of the evil one, mainly because the Doctor has this great impassioned speech that kind of mimics his speech to the Cyber Leader that's often made fun of in Earthshock, about emotions, except this time it's flavored about order, and how order would lose free will, which isn't... how complete order, I should say, would make free will disappear. You wouldn't be able to have free will with complete and utter order of the universe. That causes problems, and I love the way Davison plays that speech, because you have the Doctor sticking up to an entity of galactic proportions. It's an entity that is essentially a god, which is absolutely amazing. The guy, Jason Watkins, plays the White Guardian really well, too. Like, you get everything going on. You have time stops, and you're at the Chaos Pool. The Doctor is giving his impassioned speech and going to stop the Guardians, and then a TARDIS arrives. And that's where the cliffhanger hits, because in the TARDIS is Romana. Romana's back, played by Lalla Ward. And Lalla Ward, in her one scene, sets Romana apart once again from Princess Astra, which she did on television. I won't deny that. But here, because they're in the same story, it's the same. It's Lalla Ward's incarnation of Romana. It's not Mary Tam or anything. It all reveals everything of Romana's coming to essentially to save the Doctor, but also reveals that she was tricked by the Black Guardian, because she didn't know, and she would have no reason to know why this guy in the desert was the Black Guardian in the first place. So she just thought he was just some man that needed help, and it turns out, and the big cliffhanger reveal is, she's the sixth segment of the Key to Time, which actually makes a lot of things make more sense as to why Zara and Amy couldn't find the sixth segment. because, well, it hadn't arrived yet. And you have all the segments deteriorating, and we have the stakes are at their highest here in this third episode. This is an episode where it means, hey, we need to find a way to finish everything, or else the entire universe is going to fall apart. And I love how well that's played off. Lisa Bowerman directs this story and does such a good job at capturing the emotions and hitting the cliffhanger right at the moment where it needs to be to actually, to actually be this effective cliffhanger and a really effective way of stopping the story at a point. So overall, I'm gonna have to give part 3 of the Chaos Pool another 10 out of 10. Okay, it is the 9th of February 2021. I just finished listening to part 4 of the Chaos Pool. This concluding episode is brilliant. Honestly, I love everything that this story has done. It creates such an amazing story full of really, really fun characters. But also it finishes this arc to find the second part of the Key to Time off really, really well. Not with Amy saving the day, but with Zara saving the day. Now, some might say that that's a bit of a... Some might think that might be a cop-out. However, it's not really a cop-out when you have a lot of this episode being built around the very realistic fact that Zara is the one who had to learn to be human, who had to stop resisting the universe around her. Amy was the one who completely understood it from the beginning, and it sets them up really, really well as characters. Now, it's implied that they go to Gallifrey at the end of this, which is kind of what happens, except Big Finish then created a spin-off called Graceless, where they have their own spin-off adventures, sort of separate from the Doctor Who universe, but not entirely. It's still canon. And it is a very, very interesting spin-off. But it is also a spin-off where you kind of know what you're getting into, in a lot of ways. You understand by the end of this who Abby and Zara are, and in knowing who they are, you get to see them come to a full potential here. And I genuinely love the way that this story plays the two characters off of one another, right as they're coming to the end of their story. That this is a story where Amy and Zara have the chance to figure out who they are, what they mean to one another, which is excellent. This is also one where we have the actual whole idea of the Doctor being important is great. Just because the Doctor and Romana have this amazing reunion throughout this story, because Romana is here, and you have that big reveal of her being the sixth segment, and the way everything sort of comes together in the end is really quite clever. It's not so much Romana giving up her life or anything. It's more of just it's just a very different sort of story, because of how different this is. You don't have Romana as president yet. She's trying to gain power. She wants to open things up to non-Time Lords, which is smart, and it shows sort of her progressive thinking, but it isn't what you would absolutely expect. Like, it's this very different story because of that. Like, I love just what the story is building to and creating with this sort of style of the Doctor being of the Doctor having this whole idea. And the Black and White Guardians are here as well, having just this amazing sort of understanding of one another. They play bridge, and it's a very surreal scene. They're playing bridge with Astra and Romana, and it's very surreal to see two godlike entities playing essentially a card game, and sort of commenting on events as the universe gets saved. And you also see the Grace here, as some sort of another extra dimensional entity, which ends up creating something different. And it's weird. How you get just that different sort of story around with the Grace, and then with the Doctor and Romana. So you see just how everything has to end. So overall, I have to give part 4 of the Chaos Pool another 10 out of 10. That being said, we added the scores and averaged them out to give Doctor Who: The Key to Time, the Chaos Pool, a final score of 9.5 out of 10. This ends this story, actually, which is quite an interesting ending. It's a great story, a great trilogy, something that people sleep on. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And join me. Please click the like button. Please click the little bell icon so you never miss an upload. And perhaps more importantly, join me next time when we take a look at the final audio drama for the 5th Doctor's era. I'm not even kidding, which means we're very near to the end of the 5th Doctor's era of the show. And actually, the final story, essentially to feature the Grace twins, Abby and Zara, as Amy is renamed, and a special 20th anniversary Big Finish box set, Doctor Who: Wicked Sisters.